in Framingham. Welcome if this is your first time joining us, and welcome back if this is your community. First Parish in Framingham is a welcoming congregation. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you move around in the world, wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. We welcome you here in the meeting house, or on Zoom, or wherever and whenever you may be watching this service in the future. I'm Deb Dubourdieu. I use she, her pronouns, and I am your worship associate this morning. Please be sure to read the announcements in the order of service. Immediately following worship, you are invited to join us for coffee hour in Scott Hall, just across the courtyard. Please take a moment to turn your phones or other devices to their quietest settings. While buzzes and beeps can be distracting, we welcome your human noises, your laughter, and your cooing. We especially love the sound of your singing, so please join in. Since 1701, people have gathered as this community to rest or recharge, to be challenged or affirmed. Those people are like you. You belong here, maybe only for the next hour, but we hope for longer. We are happy to have you with us. I now invite you to take a comfortable breath in and out. Continue to take a few more comfortable breaths and to begin to release whatever you need to let go of, to be more fully present to yourself, one another, and the sacred in this time and place. The flaming chalice is a primary symbol of Unitarian Universalism. We kindle the flame of our chalice each time we gather for worship as a lamp of reason and a flame of hope. Yesterday, our distant ancestors gathered round a flame to share their stories and find comfort. Tomorrow, our descendants will gather round a flame, talking of a life we will never know. But today, it is we who gather here around this flame, seeking, believing, and being together. Please rise as you are able to sing hymn number 10, Immortal Love. And then please remain standing for our sung and spoken affirmations.
morning. My name is Lauren Strauss. I am the Director of Religious Exploration here at First Parish. My pronouns are she, her, and I would love to say with you together, good morning and welcome to church. I have something with me today. What is this? It's a jar. What are jars for? I heard everything. I heard putting stuff in. Drinking from, yep, you can drink from them. Buttons. I have a jar full of buttons. Accurate. Collecting things to put inside. Turning into the mini jar person. Oh, like you can build a little person out of jars? I love that. I haven't done that one yet. Say it again. Putting googly eyes on. Absolutely, I think we could do that. All right. And sometimes we have fresh strawberries. What could I do with fresh strawberries in a jar? Jam. All right. So we put things into jars when we want to keep them, when we want to preserve them. So sometimes I think about something really great that happened. Who's done something really great that they would love to just put in Abigail? The Nutcracker. Every year Abigail dances in the Nutcracker. We're going to put that in a jar. Framingham Youth Theater that Bridget does every summer could go in another jar. I have a bunch of little jars. Because we want to keep it. Why do we have little jars? Because Reverend Aaron has a small addiction to jam, what's it called? Advent calendar. Thank you, folks, for helping me with the words. And he donated a bunch of little cute jars. They're so cute. So, but also, you can put worries in a jar too. You could put something you're worried about in a jar, right? And sort of put it away. Because sometimes I don't want to deal with a thing that I'm worried about right now. I need to deal with it later. So I put it away. Or I could put in something that made me sad. Put that in the jar with this label. And put that in the jar, and all through some time, a few weeks or a month or a year, I can keep putting my things in little jars, whether they're happy things or sad things or in-between things or things that I don't quite know what to do with. I can put them in jars and I put them away. And then I open up the cabinet one day with the jars, and what has happened? I got a lot of jars in there. Maybe they go wobble when I open the door. What's going to happen if I put another jar in there? It's going to all fall out. I will be cleaning up a whole lot of glass jars. And what's going to happen to the stuff inside? It's all going to come out all at once. So, every once in a while, we need to stop with putting the things in the jars and intentionally open the cabinet. Take each of those jars out one by one. And maybe it's a happy thing you just want to keep forever, and that one can go back. But maybe it's a thing that made you mad, and then you maybe want to think about it and deal with it. Or maybe it's something that made you sad, and maybe you just want to cry about it. So you can take all those jars down and look at them one by one. But could you also be doing the shopping and writing the newsletter while you do that? No, you really got to focus on the jars. So every once in a while, we need to take some resting space to deal with all the stuff in our jars. Because whether or not you knew you had jars, you've got jars, right? we don't deal with our things most of the time right in the moment. We wait, we put them away. And sometimes a good therapist can be really helpful dealing with the jars. That's awesome. Mental health is great. But it's also what sabbatical is about, right? Reverend Aaron's about to go on sabbatical. And one of the things he's going to be doing is taking down his metaphorical jars and thinking about them while he doesn't have to think about everything else that he does, right? It is time to go. So if you would all help me sing the children and teachers to religious exploration, I would be very much appreciative. Ready?
Peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. I am the Reverend Aaron Sockel-Wiseman. I am your senior minister. I use he, him pronouns. This time right now, is the time that we set aside in our gathering to share the things which weigh deepest on our hearts. Our milestones are happy and sad occasions. You can submit these joys or sorrows online, or you can write them down in this book that lives at the back of our sanctuary. These are the sorrows. Vicky shares the sorrow. My wonderful neighbor, Janet, passed away on Tuesday quietly at home. She said her goodbyes and went to sleep with comfort. She was a caring and giving person and a great sense of humor. She will be missed. This concern from Ben Long, thinking of Memorial Day and all those who have sacrificed their lives to protect us. And Joanne Sarkar shares this concern on behalf of Karen Hirschman. Karen Hirschman's precious cat, Emily, is being euthanized today after a brief illness. And we light one candle for all of the joys that we carry in our lives. We light one final candle for all of the joys and all of the sorrows that are too great to share. Let us now sing, "There is a Love." The words are in your order of service. There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. Invite you now to return your attention to your breath in and your breath out, to feel the strength of whatever is supporting you, whether it is a chair or a pew, or the strength of this gathered community. I begin our time for contemplation with these words by the Reverend Barbara Pescan. They are a Memorial Day prayer. Spirit of life, whom we have called by many names in thanksgiving and in anguish, bless the poets and those who mourn. Send peace for the soldiers who did not make the wars, but whose lives were consumed by them. Let strong trees grow above graves far from home. Breathe through the arms of their branches. The earth will swallow your tears while the dead sing, no more, never again, remember me. For the wounded ones and those who received them back, let there be someone ready when the memories come, when the scars pull and the buried metal moves, and forgiveness for those who were not there for our ignorance. And in us veterans, in a forest of 1,000 fallen promises, let new leaves of protest grow on our stumps. Give us courage to answer the cry of humanity's pain, and with our bare hands, out of full hearts, with all our intelligence, let us create peace. O Spirit of life and love, named and unnamed, who calls us each by our true first name, which is beloved, we give thanks for this joyful, gathered community. We give thanks for the support of the people sitting to our left and our right. We know that there are those in our midst who mourn the loss of dear ones close to our hearts. Let us always remember them. Let us work to bring peace to the war-torn parts of our world. And when our humanity shows a little bit too much, let us be grateful. We are loved and lovable, not in spite of these imperfections, but because of them. And where we have built barriers and walls between our authentic selves, between others, and perhaps beyond, with the mystery of all understanding, because we are breathing, we still have the chance to return to right relationship with divinity, with ourselves, and with others. I say these words and do all things for love's sake. Let us continue to sit in the quiet of this house so that we might rest or recharge, or simply do nothing for one whole minute. Even as our time of silence ends, let us always remember that when we need to, we can return to that quiet, to that center.
The Reverend Michael Hall, a former intern at First Parish, writes, "As we approach the time for our offering, give what you will, for the church that has meant so much to you, for the church that meant so much to those who came before you, and for the church that will mean so much to the people you will never know. Give what you will, for you are a generous people. There is a fallow time for the spirit when the soil is barren because of sheer exhaustion. It may come at the end of a long, long period of strenuous effort. It may result from the plateau of tragedy that quietly wore away the growing edge of alertness until nothing was left but the exhausted roots of liveness. Perhaps too much anxiety, a too hard trying, a searching strain to do by oneself what can never be done that way, has made one's spirit seem like a water tap whose washer is worn out from too much pressure. But there may be the simplest possible explanation, the rhythmic ebb and flow of one's powers. Simply this, and nothing more. Whatever may be the reasons, one has to deal with the fact. Face it, then resolutely dig out dead roots, clear the ground, but don't forget to make a humus pit against the time when some young or feeble plants will need stimulation from past flowerings in your garden. Work out new designs by dreaming, daring dreams, and great and creative planning. The time is not wasted. The time of fallowness is a time of rest and restoration, of filling up and replenishing. It is the moment when the meaning of all things can be searched out, tracked down, and made to yield the secret of living. Thank God for the fallow time.
Well, we should hear that once more, I think. There's a fallow time for the spirit when the soil is barren because of sheer exhaustion. May come at the end of a long, long period of strenuous effort. May result from the plateau of tragedy that quietly wore away the growing edge of alertness till nothing was left but the exhausted roots of liveness. Perhaps too much anxiety, a too hard trying, a searching strain to do by oneself what can never be done that way, has made one's spirit seem like a water tap, whose washer is worn out from too much pressure. But there may be the simplest possible explanation, the rhythmic ebb and flow of one's powers, simply this, and nothing more. Whatever may be the reasons, one has to deal with the fact, face it. Then resolutely dig out dead roots, clear the ground, but don't forget to make a humus pit against the time when some young or feeble plants will need stimulation from past flowerings in your garden. Work out new designs by dreaming daring dreams and great and creative planning. The time is not wasted. The time of fallowness is a time of rest and restoration, of filling up and replenishing. It is the moment when the meaning of all things can be searched out, tracked down, and made to yield the secret of living. Thank God for the fallow time. In preparation for the service, I listened to that beautiful piece that the choir did, and even at home it brought tears to my eyes. So thank you for bringing those tears again. That was just stunning. Thank you. Good choice. So I want to take the time before the rest of the sermon to address the specific occasion that I am writing this sermon, as I hope you know by now. I really, really hope you know by now. This is the last Sunday before a 2-month sabbatical and some time, vacation time after for me. We have 3 wonderful services planned in June and kind of different take on the summer services for July. I'll be back here to officiate Charlotte Morier's memorial service on August 17th, and will preach on August 18th as well. I'm grateful for your Board of Assessors for granting me this time back in January 2024, especially the organizational efforts of Diane Bassett and Greg Wells. I don't know how all of this would have come together without you. Please read those words that have been sent, I think, last week about emergency pastoral coverage during my time away. So I don't have to tell all of you in the receiving line after, because it would take too long. My plans for sabbatical are fairly loose. I intend to travel a little bit, write and read, and do some exploring of conservation lands in this area. I hope to also get back to doing some letterpress printing as well. And I intend on unplugging as much as I can from social media, taking time to just experience the beauty of the world. And there's also some time with dear ministerial colleagues scheduled. This job and this profession is one of the best in my unbiased opinion. I feel incredibly lucky to do it, and it can be taxing as well. There are studies that show the amount of task switching required for this work is higher than some researchers have seen in other professions. A researcher at Boston University noted that clergy exhibited the symptoms of PTSD sometimes at a rate higher than combat veterans. Burnout is high, and yet there are also studies that show that clergy have some of the highest job satisfaction rates amongst other professions. This is truly the best profession, I think, and it will also break your heart. I hope that I can return well rested. That is both what you, the congregation, and I deserve. And my contract requires that I ask for these sabbatical times if they are short 4 months in advance. My energy is significantly different now than it was in January, but nonetheless, I'm ready for rest. I view this as preventative care. The maintenance required lights have come on, and I am so grateful for this time away and for your investment in our shared ministry and my vocation. Ministry is my life's work, I hope, and even the best ministers, which I'm not counting myself amongst, need time away. Again, deep gratitude to you. Now that we've said all of that, we can get to the text that we have heard a few times today. That mystic theologian Howard Thurman wrote these words that Deb and I read. He has become one of my favorite theologians. Maybe you heard his words on the radio in the mid-70s and 80s, I think. He was at Boston University. I read his autobiography last summer, which I recommend to you, and his words keep coming back to me. When I heard those words in the sentence that went, a water tap whose washer is worn out from too much pressure, as well as the sentence, work out new designs by dreaming daring dreams and great and creative planning, those catch my attention. Additionally, words like rest and restoration, filling up and replenishing. It's likely that the phrase, a water tap whose washer is worn out for too much pressure, catches my attention because who among us hasn't felt this way from time to time? It doesn't blame the user of the water tap. It blames the flow of water for wearing out the washer. It doesn't actually blame the water either. There would be no water pressure. That same volume of water were spread out in a puddle in a parking lot. And yet also water pressure is necessary. It is useful in that tap to get the water to move where it needs to go. No washer can be expected to last forever. Work out new designs by dreaming daring dreams and great and creative planning. I have found that when I am resting, I can get bored, and that feels strange to me. You remember from Vivek Murthy's words that we really struggle with boredom these days. We're always on our phones or our computers, or we turn on the TV, or we find some other form of distraction. At least that's me. I will not speak on your behalf. But I will say I am not good at doing nothing. And nothing is how we have a space to imagine. Your minds might wander during a sermon, or a movie, or a play, or a concert, and really that's necessary. That's the space between the words, the breathing space that you need to open up new ways of thinking. Rest, as the poet David White writes, to rest is to give up worrying on and fretting, and the sense that there is something wrong with the world unless we are there to put it right. To rest is to fall back, literally or figuratively, from outer targets and shift the goal not from an inner static bullseye, an imagined state of perfect stillness, but to an inner state of natural exchange. Restoration. The work of Tikkun Olam, building the world, rebuilding the world, begins with remembering that while there are divine sparks in others and working to repair the brokenness in the world, perhaps we need to start with remembering that we too contain that divine spark and that we too could use some repair. Filling up, my mind wanders to the many people who have said over the years some variation of that piece of advice: pray or meditate 1 hour a day, but if you are busy, pray or meditate for 2 hours a day. When we are depleted, we need that restoration, replenishing. I once heard that advice that those in helping professions and just caring people in general should aim to have a cup with them, a metaphorical cup, that is so full with all of the things that we do to take care of each other, that they are actually overflowing, and that we care for people with what is overflowing. Our lives would have to be slow and full to let that happen. As I hear Thurman's words, I feel as though my hand is opening and closing, like my hand is making a fist and then it is releasing. I can feel the relief in that release, and I can feel the pressure in its clenching. As I think about Thurman's words, I can also picture myself in a fallow field. I wonder if you can as well. Resting well in knowing that it too needs to rest. You can also sense a little bit of disappointment. Perhaps that's the capitalist in me who's speaking. It doesn't look productive. I feel refreshment too, like that first sip of cool, cool water after a hike, or the embrace of the comfiest chair after a long trip. On a second reading, the line, rhythmic ebb and flow of one's powers, caught my attention. It reminds us that needing to rest isn't failure. It's just part of life. As you might know, in most practices of Lectio Divina, my spiritual practice of choice, you encounter a poem or a passage a total of 4 times. And at each encounter of the text, we're invited to pay attention to a different camera angle or a different focus point. When one has encountered the text for a 4th time, at least how I like to do it, that 4th time is about the invitation that we receive from the passage. What about your next few days does this text invite you to consider differently, or what does it affirm for you? This text for me affirms the importance of rest. Sabbath, rest, and slowness feel subversive in a society addicted to work. When we think about the mission or vision of the church, we often call it imagining the work of the church. What if the next time that we do mission and vision work as a church, we also took time to say, where is the rest in church? Where is recreation, celebration, and play? Sabbath, rest, and slowness feel subversive in society addicted to work. Think about how bad it feels to have someone catch us napping. My grandfather hated it when he would be just resting his eyes in the comfy chair, and we would poke him and say, "You fell asleep." And he would say, "I was resting my eyes." Feels embarrassing. Feels almost funny to see someone nod off, but it's their body saying, "No, I need the rest." We need to listen to our bodies when they say it's time to sleep. Tricia Hersey wrote a wonderful book called Rest is Resistance, and she also has a ministry called the Nap Ministry, which Hersey created while she was in the midst of divinity school, which is an exhausting thing to begin with. This Nap ministry is informed by Black liberation theology, womanist theology, Afrofuturism, somatics, and community organizing. Her ministry is about claiming rest and napping as a spiritual practice. Sometimes when things are really tough, we forget about the resting. We feel that it's unproductive. Percy responds in an article from the New Yorker, the Atlantic magazine, a little bit further down the coast, I guess. She says, rest is productive. When you are resting, you are being productive. I'm trying to reframe rest and deprogram people around the concept that if you are not doing something in the classic sense, then you're not worthy. She says, I want to uplift that when you're sleeping, you are actually doing something. You're honoring your body. You're giving your brain a moment to download that new information. You're disrupting toxic systems by reclaiming rest. Ultimately, I think the practice of rest and renewal is about saying no. Barbara Brown Taylor, in her book, An Altar in the World, A Geography of Faith, writes, in the eyes of the world, there is no payoff for sitting on the porch. A field full of weeds will not earn anyone's respect. If you want to succeed in life, whatever your field or endeavor is, you must spray, you must plow, you must fertilize, you must plant. You must never turn your back. Each year's harvest must be bigger than the last. Blessedly, she does not stop there. In the eyes of the true God, the porch is imperative. Not every now and then, but on a regular basis. When the fields are at rest, when shy deer step from the woods to graze on purple clover, grown up between last year's tomato plants, and the Carolina chickadees hang upside down to pry seeds from the sunflowers that have taken over the vineyard. When the people who belong to this land walk through it with straw hats instead of hose, to discover that wild blueberries water their mouths as surely as the imported grapes they worked so hard to protect from last year's frost. This is not called letting things go. This is called practicing Sabbath. You have to wonder what makes human beings so resistant to it. Taylor writes that often when she talks about this practice of Sabbath keeping, usually the first thing that people respond to are all of the reasons why they can't do that. Aren't we good at doing this? Making our own personal lists of the things that give us life, and then we make on the other side of that sheet of paper the list of all of the reasons why we can't do those things. So if you cannot take a day off or a week or a month off, there are baby steps. Taylor says, much for you to imagine, then start however you can. Decide that you will get up an hour before everyone else in the house and dedicate that time to doing nothing but being in the divine presence. Decide that you will turn off the television an hour before bed and spend that time outside looking up at the sky. You could resolve not to add anything more to your calendar without subtracting something from it. You could practice praising yourself for saying no as lavishly as you do when you say yes. Chances are good you will need to enlist the help of others to engage in this task. You will need some partner revolutionaries in this radical quest of rest and reorienting the world. I know you will. Maybe they are some of the people who are sitting next to you. I hope they are. My friends gathered here, here is your homework. Make that list of the things that bring you life, of the things that bring you joy, and do just one of those things in the next week. And then check in with someone near you. If you don't know their name, well, after the prelude is a great time to ask them. These small, life-giving projects will create the world that we dream about. We each deserve rest, renewal, and restoration. May it be so, and amen. So let's rise in body or spirit to sing our closing hymn. It's number 298 in the gray hymnal. There's still a lot on our schedule for the rest of May and June. Be sure to look to see all of the great things that we'll be up to. Our annual meeting is on Thursday, the work of the congregation. Truly, there is a concert in this space on May 31st. And then we have a lineup of wonderful, beloved preachers coming back. Reverend Joanna Murphy will be preaching that first Sunday of June. Elizabeth Murphy, no relation to my knowledge, our former ministerial intern, will be preaching, and then the youth group will close out our year. So there's still a lot to do here. And so as we leave this friendly place, let us take the light of love out into the world and use it to brighten our pathways. And when we need to rest or recharge, be challenged or affirmed, may that light guide us safely back. May we hold the light always, and light hold us always. Amen, and go in peace.